Oh, Lordy. Hey, y'all. It's Kena. It's been a while. Haven't done it in over a week now because I was sick. Um, I was very sick. So I'm asthmatic. I've been asthmatic since I was 7 years old. And never have I ever had to wait or be on a waiting list for inhalers. And since this COVID-19 has broken out, I'm starting to believe that people are prescribing people inhalers. And so, because it's a respiratory issue. So I'm assuming that that's what happened. But y'all, I like had to be on a waiting list for an inhaler. And so I have all my inhalers now. I have my steroids, so I'm feeling much better. So I appreciate people looking out for me and checking on me. I also want to thank everybody for supporting me on the podcast. Mama didn't tell me on Monday. I got a lot of good feedback from that. So I just want to appreciate everybody for supporting me this past week as I went through some illnesses and had an opportunity to speak on a podcast a little bit. So thanks for joining. I'm gonna make this very short. The last couple of times I went over 40 minutes on that Mississippi conversation that I had last week. I'm not gonna go 40 minutes this time, y'all. I promise I'm gonna keep it up to 15 minutes because I really don't have that much to say. I think that what I have to talk about today is, so relevant right now. And, I just want to keep digging home to you all that our votes are so freaking important. And what's going on with COVID right now, COVID-19, y'all, if this does not prove to you how important the black vote actually is and how we've been playing around with it all these decades, I really don't. I want to say rest in peace to my fraternity sister, Santiana Harris. She died, and her father died this week of coronavirus. And I just want to, send love and support out to that family. Santiana was such a powerhouse musician, and this is just a huge, huge loss to the musical community. But in her memory, I definitely have to speak on this situation that's happening right now. COVID hit our communities this week. I know so many people, a lot of my friends who have lost cousins, have lost family members, have lost parents. In this last week, Detroit is being hit super hard. That's where I'm from. And it's just really, really hard right now to process exactly what's happening. But if you listen to how people try to package coronavirus, they say it's the great equalizer, that it doesn't show discrimination, that it hits anybody. And we know for a fact that that's not necessarily the truth, because while it's not, gonna discriminate in terms of who gets it, it will discriminate in terms of like how it is taken care of in different communities. And so that's something that I really, really want to push out to y'all today. It's hitting our communities very, very difficult and in difficult ways. And I just want to kind of bring some things out, because blacks are dying at a higher rate than any other race right now. And because they don't show these types of statistics on the news, we generally don't know this. And so I just want to break some things down to you. And I want to talk to you about things that we need to think about doing in this next election cycle on making sure that this stuff stops. Because if we don't, start speaking out against this type of stuff and making sure that we squad up together to fight this type of stuff, this is always going to happen to us. So that when the white community gets a cold, the black community is always going to get deaf pneumonia. And at some point, we're going to have to put our feet down to make sure that doesn't happen anymore. So I'm going to just dive right into it. I also want to talk to y'all about the ways that our ancestors used to handle this in the past and how they fixed it. So let's talk about, the statistics right now. Most of y'all know the work that I do in school districts are really, really vastly concentrated on data. So I make decisions on what happens in the school district, what tests we give students, what classes students have to take, etc. I make decisions like that for our school districts based off of data. And if you want to show certain things in data, you can. And if you want to suppress certain information in data, you can. Most of our states are not breaking down coronavirus deaths based off of demographic information. An example of that would be in Orleans Parish, in Orleans Parish, we only know that they are getting the biggest chunk of people dying. They have not broken it down into race. They have not broken it down into socioeconomic status. They haven't broken it down past the fact that in all of these counties, Parish County is getting hit. Orleans Parish is getting hit the biggest. And 40% of the deaths that's happening in Louisiana are happening in Orleans Parish. That's the only data that we know. But what we do know is outside of what they're not showing us in the COVID data, basically Orleans Parish is 60% black. So the parish with the most black people is being hit the largest in Louisiana. They can hide that data by not breaking it down into race and not breaking it down into socioeconomic status. So that's why so many states are able to hide this from you, because they are not able to, they're not willing to break down into, race demographics and also socioeconomic data. So they're not really showing you who is getting hit hardest with this. So let me give you a couple of statistics. Let's start with Milwaukee. Milwaukee has 945 cases right now, and African Americans all constitute half of that. Half. 945 cases in Milwaukee, and one half is African Americans, right? But African Americans are only 26% of the population. So that's showing you right there that African Americans are getting this bigger than anybody else in Milwaukee. 81% of their 27 deaths have been black people. All right. Of those 81% of the 27 that have died, black people, 11 had diabetes, 8 had hypertension, and 15 had mixtures of certain chronic diseases such as lung disease and asthma and things like that. So at the end of the day, people are not realizing that one, health equity does not exist for our people. So those of us who have a lot of precondition, what do they call those things? Those conditions, preconditions. I forgot what the name of it is. But all of those chronic illnesses that black people already have, that hits our community. And that's why we are at such larger risk of dying, because of, how health does not equitably serve our community as it should. So Milwaukee is really in the middle of it, y'all, right now. Our black community in Milwaukee is really in dire straits. Detroit is not much different. So Michigan is only 14% of African Americans as a full state, although Detroit is, thank you, pre-existing conditions. Thank you so much. Y'all got me. Thank you so much, because y'all know I can't remember all that stuff. Pre-existing conditions. All right. So back to Detroit. Michigan is 14% black, and Detroit itself is about 79% black. So we know where the largest concentration of African Americans are in Detroit. 35% of all cases have been black. Now, mind you, the population is 14%. And 40% of all deaths in Michigan are from African Americans. Again, 14% of the population. It is hitting African Americans so hard right now. And we are sitting up here playing around with our damn votes. And I just have an issue with it, because when things like this come out, this is how we can see, that we've been playing with our votes too long. So you have southern states who, are doing some other types of things that's really, really hitting the African American communities as well. Atlanta has a fake, stay put, they have a stay put order that's out that people are not following. Black people are still having, I know y'all seen it on y'all IG, because I saw it on my IG. They still having, parties and stuff. Everybody saw what was happening in Rouge River Park down in Detroit. You know what I'm saying? People still, black people, I guess, still feel like they immune to it or something like that. But at the end of the day, because we have voted so poorly in the past, you know, we're not a priority. We're just not a priority right now. So at the end of the day, like, you know, Southern places especially are just not respecting the black vote at all. And an example would be in Nashville, they did an interview at Meharry Medical College where they had like built out this whole drive-through setup and stuff like that in Meharry, and they turned around and said that a couple of the doctors there said that, you know, when they were asking for supplies from bigger hospitals and things like that to get to Meharry, they wouldn't send it to them, you know. And so basically their drive-in where they were going to try to do all the testing and stuff still hasn't even been used. And there is no other drive-in area in that Jefferson corridor that's by Tennessee State and Fisk and Meharry. So, and that's a largely African-American spot, and yet people are not able to get testing still in those spaces. Then you have a situation like in Memphis where they did a study of like how many drive-ins were available, and most of them were in the affluent areas around Memphis. So it's just been crazy, you know what I'm saying, that, you know, black people have just not been served. And then on top of, you know, the health inequities that's starting to break down, you have the idea of like the economic race wealth gap that's happening right now. So blacks earn 50% less than whites as of 2018 and are more likely to rent. And out of all of the different places that, you know, have mortgage forgiveness that's going on right now, most of those same places do not have rent forgiveness. So New York is one of them, and that is why AOC called out Cuomo and said, oh, you're going to sit up here and forgive mortgage payments, but you're not going to forgive rent, you know, for people that can't pay their rent right now. And that's what most of the cities are doing. They are looking out for people with mortgages, but they're not looking out for people that have rent. And a good majority of black people rent. So at the end of the day, if they are in those low wage arenas that are considered essential, then they can't work from home like the rest of us have that luxury. They have to still go to work because they have to still make sure that their rent is going to be hit. So who is being affected by that the most? Black people. And so for these types of things to kind of come out so largely and us not take our vote seriously is problematic to me. It's very problematic to me. And if Biden cannot say, hey, the black community is being affected, we need to do this for the black community, y'all need to get on the phone, and because they do have some things in Congress that's being pushed out, such as the Healthy Families Act. We got to call our congressmen and tell them that we want them to pass that and send some emails and something like that. But Biden ain't telling us to do that. Bernie not telling us to do that. And so at the end of the day, we're just not using our collective power as a populace to be able to get the things that we need so our people do not continue to get death pneumonia when white America gets the cold. Like, we're just not using our votes to be able to protect that for us. And so that is kind of what my issue is today. I would like to let y'all know that in the past, there have been black delegations that were the voice of the African American community that allowed, you know, black people to have a voice when it came to the government. So a couple of examples of these black delegations, and y'all gonna crack up because one of them is actually called the Black Delegation, but I'm gonna go through a couple of them to tell y'all like exactly how this used to work. The first one that we ever had was called the National Colored Convention, which was from 1830 to 1887. And they used to come together every year as delegates on a national level. They also had state and local conventions. But they would come together with delegates and they would talk about different black issues that they had. One of the issues that they had was around the 1830s when Richard Allen was actually elected president at that time. I think most of y'all should know who Richard Allen is. He was the founder of AME. They actually had a vote on whether or not black people should try to immigrate to Canada because the United States was not supporting them as African Americans or allowing them to vote. Like, we used to get together as black people and discuss, you know what I'm saying, our, like, as a community, things that we really wanted to push for. And that community used to get together, that convention, and Frederick Douglass was a member of it. And they used to really push towards, like, you know, black equality. And they used to have the ear of Abraham Lincoln and would be able to push, you know, some things down as a very strong cohort. You also had in the 1890s, when they started passing all those jacked up laws that I was telling y'all about last week in Mississippi, the National Afro-American League was from 1890 to about 1908. And all of the prominent African Americans was a part of that. You had I.W. Wells, you had William Trotter, you had Booker T. Washington, you had W.E.B. Du Bois. You know, all of these folks were members of this Afro-American League, and they used to go to the president with concerns of the people in all of their different cities and talk to William McKinley and talk to Theodore Roosevelt and let them know, like, this is what the black community is asking for. This is what the people are, you know, advocating for. Now, of course, like I told y'all a couple weeks ago, Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois started doing this, and so their organizations start splintering from there. But after that, they started working directly with the president. So you had something called the Black Cabinet while FDR was president, and Mary McLeod Bethune was the leader of that. And what they did was they pushed through, like, economic stimulus packages that he would push forward. They had segregation, like, laws kind of curtailed in a lot of different places. And, you know, they were called the Black Cabinet. And FDR went to his Black Cabinet to make sure that, you know, their voices were heard. The only thing he didn't budge on was making lynching a federal crime. They tried to force him to do that, and he wouldn't sign up for it because he was like, you know, he was Democrat. And at the time, Democrats were mostly a Southern, you know, party. And so if he talks about anti-lynching, he knows he's not going to get any votes from the South. So he didn't take that. But for the most part, he pushed through a lot of stimulus packages from that organization. And we have to, you know, start thinking about what our people did in the past to get things done that we're not doing right now. So to have a full Black cabinet that, you know, advise the president, advise the first lady, and let them know, like, these are, you know, things that our people really, really want to see taken care of. And that's how they got, you know, a lot of things passed at the time. In 1963, there was a Black Delegation. And the Black Delegation was put together by James Baldwin. And they had a meeting with RFK, Robert F. Kennedy. And they got in his ass, honey. They got in his ass so bad it was hilarious. But it was Lorraine Hansberry, James Baldwin, Harry Belafonte, Lena Horne. A lot of different people were in that one. Let's see. Oh yeah, Clarence Benjamin Jones. I don't think y'all know his name, but he was the legal advisor to Martin Luther King. And so they met with RFK in New York, and they got in his ass about a lot of stuff that's not happening. And as a white man who had not, and he admitted this, you know, I haven't been around a lot of black people, so I really don't understand what y'all needs are. Can you break this down for me? And when they started breaking it down, you know, he kind of felt offended because he like, well, y'all don't think we doing something for you, you know? Well, 2 weeks after they had that conversation and cussed him out and went all the way off on him, his brother did the Civil Rights Act speech that was on June the 11th, 1963. They had, you know, influenced him so heavily that he pushed his brother to start pushing civil rights acts. And that is basically where we got that act, and where we also got the Voters' Right Act of 1965, which I told y'all about, had a lot to do with what happened in Mississippi as well. If you missed my Mississippi video, please check that out. But the Black Delegation changed his mind so much that he was able to really, like, really fight for African Americans and making sure that we got laws, federal laws, that were put in place. And so those are the types of things that we're going to have to start thinking about, y'all, because we don't really necessarily have a leader right now. And, you know, making sure that we have a strong voice that's telling, you know, the black community, telling the president exactly, or, you know, the people that make the decisions, even Bernie Sanders, hell, we can even sit and talk to them and put together some type of a delegation to start pushing these things through, because COVID is really getting ready to take us out of here, y'all. It's really getting ready to deplete the black community. If you think it's a joke, I mean, you obviously are not reading any type of demographic data that's coming out right now. It is clear that the places where African Americans are the most populous, that is where people are getting hit the hardest. And we are just not putting ourselves in a really, really good position to fix this. Even when we come out of this epidemic, we don't even have any plans to fix this. And that's where my problems lie. I want to tell y'all this last little story from 1972 that many of y'all probably don't even know about, which is crazy. But again, going back to what they don't teach us in schools, in our history classes, because they don't want us to, start a revolution, but I digress. In 1972, there was a national black political convention that was headed by Shirley Chisholm, Jesse Jackson, Dick Gregory, Coretta Scott King, Amari Baraka, Louis Farrakhan, Betty Shabazz, Bobby Seale, Coleman Young, and John Conyers, who, all kind of bought every African American in every single state, having a delegate. They brought them together in Gary, Indiana in 1972. Muhammad Ali was the sergeant at arms, and Harry Belafonte and James Brown was the entertainment for the 3 days that they were there. Each state selected delegates to come to this convention, this black convention for straight up black people. And what they did was 10,000 delegates from all 45 states and many different places that have African Americans or Africans that are represented came. People from the Caribbean, people, Aborigines from Australia, all of them came. It was people from Africa who was a part of the Pan-African Congress. They came. So you had delegates of all of these African Americans who came together and were all represented at the time. The goal was to create a black agenda that, really represented what most African Americans in America wanted. So they ended with 68 pages that asked for specific legislation, or blacks basically threatened that they would start a third party if these demands were not met. So here are a couple of the demands that they had. They wanted supportive legislation to give blacks equal representation based on the proportions of their black communities and the populations in those communities. So they fought for that. They also fought to guarantee minimum income to all black families of 4+. Now that's basically what Bernie Sanders have been trying to push out. It's also a part of reparations where black people get a certain amount of income. And so whatever you make at your home, the difference will be paid for by the government. They also pushed for 50% cut in defense spending. And they also fought to end trade with countries that supply drugs. Now, I think that that's pretty interesting to bring up, because I don't know if y'all know, but Trump right now is like going after Venezuela and Colombia because he feels like they are bringing drugs into America and that you have to stop at the root. Well, in 1972, that's what the African American leadership was asking people to do anyway, was to, not do trade with people who bring drugs into our communities. And so they fought for that. And then they also fought for free college at HBCUs. So that is a part of what, they asked for in the Black Agenda of 1972. And what happened from that was within the next 10 years, the black community had doubled the amount of representation it had across the country. And that's when you started to see that big influx of mayors starting to be elected. Jesse Jackson being a candidate for president was a part of that push. So I say that to say that behind COVID, we have all of these dire statistics that many states are hiding right now. They're not breaking down for you how black people are disproportionately being affected by, health inequities right now. And for us to fix that, y'all, we are going to have to take we're going to have to take ownership of how we vote. We cannot continue to just vote for people because they Obama homeboy or, you know what I'm saying, because we know their name. If they not talking nothing to us to change what's happening to us right now, then we gotta not vote for them, y'all. And at the end of the day, if we have to squad up together to say we're locking arms and we're not voting for anybody who is not going to fix A, B, C, and D. We are just so splintered as a people right now. There is no organization. Our ancestors were straight up organized, and that's how they were able to break down segregation. That's how they were able to break down not being able to vote. That's how they were able to get rid of so many different things, is because as a community, we were organized and we worked together to get things done. We're not doing it. And we are getting ready to see so many black deaths that come behind this COVID-19 right now. It is not going to be, it's going to blow your mind. Because at the end of the day, we are just disproportionately dying. And we have to make sure that we know the statistics about this. It's hitting us harder for a reason. And it's because of the things that I keep telling y'all is in this book here. The Color of Law. You need to get it. And you need to see how the law is being used to disenfranchise us. And the things that we need to do right now to start at least trying to save our own people starts with talking to your congressman, emailing them, calling them, making sure that you on Twitter, hitting them up, because you will get responses back. I just got a very lengthy response because I just got into Corbin Gardner's ass about how he voted on the stimulus package the first time, and he sent me an email back, and we went back and forth for a little while. You can actually do that. Get on the phone, get on the email, get on Twitter, and hit your congressman up right now. Because at the end of the day, we need more supplies, we need more tests, we need more testing centers, and we also need that Healthy Families Act to be pushed through Congress so that when people decide that they do not want to work anymore, you need to make sure that, you know what I'm saying, you are pushing Congress to hit that up so people who don't have paid family leave and that kind of thing, you get what I'm saying, like they can take off. Like there's so many people that just can't even take off, and that's also furthering the disease in our community. So I will end it right there. I really appreciate y'all reaching out and talking today, because this is bad, and it's really getting ready to hit the African American community like you ain't never seen before, because we're not sending people home. Those are the essential workers at grocery stores. Those are the people who are, bus drivers, all that kind of stuff that keep the city going. Black people are the ones who make it go. It's always on our backs and ain't never not been on our backs. And now we're getting ready to full throttle feel this effect. And if we don't use our voices to, get our congressmen and all of them to make some acts towards black people right now, it's going to continue to get worse. So I'll put some more information in the comments so that you can, get active and use your voice from your house as much as you can. But I appreciate each of y'all. Definitely hit me up if y'all have some questions. Love y'all.